In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But imagine, for a moment, a galaxy rewritten. A galaxy where the favored son of the Emperor, Horus, emerges victorious aboard the vengeful spirit. The Emperor, the immortal architect of humanity, falls, struck down by the very being he raised to lead the Imperium's armies. His golden body shattered, his spirit severed from the web of human destiny, leaving nothing but whispers of what once was. Terra, the cradle of mankind, quakes beneath the weight of this betrayal. The imperial palace burns as the loyal custodes falter without their master. The throne room, once a sanctuary of golden authority, becomes a citadel for chaos, a monument to treachery. Horus rises not merely as War Master, but as the undisputed ruler of the galaxy. The legions, once bound by loyalty and honor, fracture and reshape. Some follow him willingly, seduced by promises of power, glory, and the intoxicating whispers of the Chaos Gods. Others resist, scattered into hiding, reduced to shadows of their former glory. The sons of Horus, legion of the War Master, stand unchallenged. Their will, sharpened by devotion and the taint of the warp, enforces the new order. They sweep across Terra and the surrounding systems, consolidating power and annihilating opposition. Entire cities are purged, millions die in flames, their screams echoing into the void. Chaos, sensing the shift, moves with subtle precision. The ruinous powers have long manipulated mortal ambition, but now they observe the culmination of their work. They are both pleased and wary, for Horus is powerful, yet still mortal, and their influence must remain carefully tended, lest their pawn becomes a rival. The galaxy beyond Terra trembles. Systems once loyal to the Empire descend into panic, unaware of the full scale of the catastrophe unfolding at the heart of the Imperium. Worlds that might have rallied in defense of humanity instead crumble under demonic incursions, cult uprisings, and the relentless advance of traitor legions. Humanity itself is fractured. The once mighty Imperium becomes a web of isolated factions, each trying to survive in a galaxy now dominated by Horus's forces and the ever-present corruption of chaos. The Adeptus Mechanicus, deprived of Imperial guidance, splinters, some offering their technology to Horus willingly, others resisting and becoming targets of the War Master's wrath. Loyal Space Marines, scattered and leaderless, wage guerrilla campaigns, striking at the edges of the War Master's empire. Yet without central coordination, their efforts are isolated and often futile. They are hunted relentlessly by the traitor legions, who know every tactic, anticipate every move, and respond with unyielding force. Horus consolidates power not merely through strength, but through the subtle application of terror and manipulation. Planets that resist are scorched, populations enslaved or exterminated. Others are co-opted into worship of the new order, indoctrinated into the service of Horus and his dark patrons. The Chaos Gods themselves revel in this victory. Khorne thirsts for the blood spilled across countless worlds. Tzeentch delights in the schemes and manipulations that now define the galaxy. Nurgle spreads his plagues with abandon, seeding despair and decay. Slaanesh feeds upon the endless indulgences, ambition, and hubris of mortals and marines alike. Yet even as they feed, they are careful. for Horus's ambition threatens to eclipse their own. The surviving loyalists attempt to rally around fragments of the Emperor's legacy. Some flee to the Outer Rim, establishing hidden bastions. Others take up ancient relics and the remnants of the Imperial Navy, hoping to carve out enclaves of resistance. But every action they take is shadowed by Horus's omnipresent reach, enforced by legions who are no longer brothers, but hunters of their former kin. The warp itself grows restless. Normally a realm of unpredictable chaos, it begins to shift subtly under Horus's influence. His power, amplified by the favor of the Chaos Gods, allows him to manipulate the Imperium in ways previously reserved for the Emperor alone. Entire fleets vanish into void storms conjured at his whim. Worlds are consumed in psychic conflagrations. Demons march openly across battlefields unchallenged. The culture of humanity transforms. Where once there were hymns to the Emperor, now the War Master's name is spoken in fear and awe. Every citizen, every warrior, every psyker understands that defiance means annihilation. Religion, politics, and daily life revolve around the shadow of Horus's dominion. Over decades, the galaxy becomes a place unrecognizable from the Imperium that might have been. Loyalist enclaves shrink into legends, whispered about as myths of the past. Traitor legions, augmented by demonic servants, roam freely. Chaos cults flourish, spreading not just belief, but corruption, plague, and madness. Systems that once resisted are now temples of desecration. Horus himself grows more than mortal. His ambitions, bolstered by the Chaos Gods, twist him. He is no longer merely a war master, but a figure approaching divinity, feared by all. Yet, with each victory, he becomes a target of envy and intrigue, not only among mortals, but even within the legions and the pantheon of chaos. Generations pass. The galaxy, once bound by the Emperor's unifying vision, becomes a dark theater of perpetual war. The ruinous powers manipulate, the traitor legions enforce, and humanity survives only as scattered, enslaved, or corrupted populations. Entire planets are transformed into fortresses of desecration, bastions of terror, or landscapes of plague and fire. Even the outer systems, once distant and ignored, feel the shadow of Horus. Star nations crumble under coordinated attacks. Rogue traders and explorers vanish into warp storms or are drawn into the web of chaos influence. The galaxy contracts, becoming a dominion of fear, obedience, and constant vigilance. Horus's legacy is paradoxical. Though he rules with unmatched power, the galaxy he inherits is inherently unstable. His dominion relies on fear, corruption, and the favor of entities beyond mortal comprehension. Each success carries the seed of future rebellion, and every act of conquest strengthens the Chaos God's hold over reality itself. Mortals adapt. Humans born into this new order learn fear as the language of survival. Entire generations are indoctrinated to worship Horus as a god, unaware of the man he once was. Yet whispers of the Emperor linger, forbidden stories told in secret, sparks of defiance in the shadows. And the warp grows hungrier. The ruinous powers, though satiated by Horus's victories, sense that their pawn may one day seek dominion independent of their will. They whisper, scheme, and occasionally punish, keeping the galaxy on edge. Their manipulations ripple across systems, ensuring the instability of Horus's empire, yet amplifying his power in terrifying ways. The scattered loyalists, remnants of once mighty legions, continue their desperate struggle. Each strike, each sabotage is a small rebellion, a whisper of hope in a galaxy that has lost its light. They endure for centuries, moving from system to system, hiding in asteroids, abandoned starports, and forgotten colonies. Yet the overwhelming power of Horus and his Chaos allies ensures that few of these efforts succeed in any meaningful way. Planets once flourishing under the Empire's guidance are now twisted by the presence of demons and the influence of chaos. Forests are poisoned, oceans boil, and skies burn with unnatural fire. Entire populations are enslaved to serve the war machine of Horus or sacrificed in blasphemous rituals to empower the ruinous powers. As the centuries grind forward, Horus's empire reshapes the galaxy into a crucible of eternal suffering. No longer does mankind look to the stars with wonder or ambition. Instead, every system lives beneath the oppressive shadow of chaos, forced to worship or perish. Temples devoted to Horus rise on countless worlds, their spires twisting skyward in mockery of the Emperor's once proud imperial architecture. Golden aquillas are torn down, replaced by the snarling wolf of the War Master, an icon that inspires both devotion and dread. The traitor Primarchs, once divided by rivalry and suspicion, now stand as barons of this new order. Fulgrim rules decadent palaces where mortals are little more than instruments of pleasure and torment. Angron stalks across blood-soaked battlefields, his butcher's nails a hymn of eternal slaughter. Mortarion spreads pestilence without restraint, his worlds choked with smog and rot. Perturabo reshapes planets into fortresses of iron and pain, turning entire populations into slaves for his engines of war. Each legion is unleashed fully into the galaxy, freed of restraint, encouraged to embody the very extremes of their corruption. Yet, even among these nightmares, Horus remains supreme. He rules not through brute strength alone, but with the cunning that once made him the most beloved of Primarchs. He plays his brothers against one another, granting power and reward sparingly, ensuring their loyalty while never allowing any one of them to surpass him. His charisma, warped though it has become, is undeniable. To mortals and Astartes alike, he is not merely a leader, but a living god, a being whose will shapes the very course of the galaxy. But the Chaos Gods are never silent. Khorne demands blood without end, pushing Angron and his World Eaters into wars that destabilize carefully built conquests. Tzeentch whispers schemes into the ears of Magnus, who begins to view himself less as a servant and more as a rival. Nurgle weaves his plagues so deep into the fabric of human existence that entire systems become quagmires of despair, useless to the greater ambitions of the War Master. Slaanesh, intoxicated by Fulgrim's excesses, consumes worlds in waves of unrestrained indulgence that leave little but ash and madness behind. Horus walks a dangerous path. While he wears the crown of the galaxy, he knows that the throne he sits upon is a seat of knives. The ruinous powers empower him, but they also test him. Their gifts come with chains unseen, and Horus, though mighty, is ensnared in their web. At times he resists, asserting his will with terrifying force, but each act of defiance draws him deeper into their grip. The human condition deteriorates under this reign. Where once the Imperium promised stability, even if through tyranny, Horus's dominion delivers only despair. On agricultural worlds, farmers till blighted soil under skies filled with warp-born storms. Forge worlds produce endless engines of war, but at the cost of their populations, who are consumed like fuel. Hive cities rot from within, their lower levels infested with cults, demons, and diseases that walk flesh and mind alike. Entire generations are born into chains. To them, Horus is no usurper, but the rightful master of mankind. Children are raised to chant his name, to fear the whispers of the dead emperor, and to despise the loyalists who lurk like phantoms at the galaxy's edge. Education becomes indoctrination, culture becomes ritual sacrifice, and ambition becomes servitude to the War Master's grand design. The loyalist remnants fight on, though their victories are fleeting and their losses catastrophic. Robute Gilliman, had he survived, would have attempted to carve out a bastion of order, but without the Emperor, his vision is limited, constantly beset by betrayal and corruption. Rogel Dawn's defenses crumble under the endless assaults of traitor legions. Vulcan, if alive, wanders as a broken shadow, his unkillable form cursed to witness the endless suffering of humanity. The remaining Primarchs, scattered and hunted, become myths told in whispers by resistance fighters. But the galaxy does not forget. On hidden worlds, in the silence of abandoned monasteries, and within the archives of shattered librariums, the memory of the Emperor persists. Secret cults form, worshipping the Emperor as a martyred god, a savior unjustly slain. These cults are hunted ruthlessly, yet their persistence gnaws at the edges of Horus's dominion. The War Master, despite all his triumphs, cannot erase the memory of the one he betrayed. The warp itself grows darker. With the Emperor gone, the Astronomicon extinguished, and Terra corrupted, travel through the void becomes perilous in ways beyond imagining. Fleets vanish into storms, their crews torn apart by psychic entities. Traders and explorers are possessed, turned into unwitting vessels of demonic corruption. Whole sectors vanish from navigational charts, swallowed by warp rifts that bleed into real space, leaving behind only twisted echoes of once thriving civilizations. As millennia pass, Horus's reign transforms into something approaching immortality. His form, once mortal, becomes a vessel of warp energy, a being tethered between the material and the immaterial. He is no longer simply a Primarch. He is a god in his own right, ascendant beyond the dreams of even the ruinous powers. His visage is burned into the minds of all who gaze upon him, both terrible and awe-inspiring. Yet this ascension only deepens the unease of the Chaos Gods, who sense in him a rival as much as a servant. The galaxy becomes a theater of constant civil war. While Horus commands ultimate authority, the Chaos Gods deliberately sow discord among the legions to prevent unity. Civil wars erupt between Primarchs, planets are burned in petty rivalries, and billions die in battles that mean nothing beyond the appeasement of capricious deities. Horus quells these conflicts with brutal precision, but even he cannot silence the infinite hunger of the powers that granted him his throne. Still, the Loyalists endure. From the depths of the galaxy, Hidden enclaves strike with precision. Relics of the Emperor are carried like torches, inspiring small armies to rise in defiance. Some succeed in reclaiming worlds, only to be crushed by Horus's inexorable counterattack. Others vanish without trace, their sacrifices unknown to history. Yet their persistence is a reminder that even in a galaxy drenched in corruption, hope is never fully extinguished. For Horus, victory proves both his greatest triumph and his eternal curse. He achieved what no mortal, no Primarch, and no god had ever done. He slew the Emperor and claimed the galaxy. But in doing so, he bound himself to the very powers he once believed he could master. He wears the crown of chaos, but it is a crown of thorns, each point a reminder of his dependence on gods who are both his patrons and his jailers. And so the galaxy burns, not for 10,000 years of stalemate, but in an unending spiral of conquest and damnation. Humanity, once the dream of the Emperor, becomes a tool of chaos, its spirit broken, its destiny corrupted. The stars themselves seem dimmer, as though recoiling from the endless night that has descended. Horus won, humanity lost, and the galaxy, in this nightmare vision, belongs not to order nor to hope, but to the eternal dominion of chaos. The Xenos of the galaxy, once watched with suspicion by the Imperium, now face the full brunt of Horus's unrestrained dominion. Where once the Emperor may have tolerated their existence so long as humanity thrived, Horus and his legions view them only as prey, sacrifices to fuel the ambitions of the Chaos gods. The Eldar, already a shattered race, reeling from the birth of Slaanesh, become the first to suffer. Craft worlds that had survived the fall find themselves relentlessly hunted. Fulgrim's Emperor's children pursue them with fanatic zeal, eager to offer their souls to she who thirsts. Battles rage in the void as elegant Eldar vessels are torn apart by corrupted fleets. Entire craft worlds are boarded, their halls transformed into arenas of torment. The surviving Eldar are enslaved, their essence consumed by Slaanesh, or gifted as tribute by Fulgrim to his patron deity. The Eldar pantheon, already decimated, can do nothing but watch as their children are extinguished, one fragile soul at a time. The Orcs, by their nature, thrive in conflict, and Horus's galaxy provides no shortage of battle. Warlords rise in endless waves, drawn to the greatest fight the galaxy has ever known. Yet Horus is cunning. Rather than attempt to eradicate them, he manipulates the Orcs, using them as a perpetual tool of destruction. Angron and his World-Eaters unleash them upon rebellious systems, directing their fury at populations too insignificant to warrant the attention of Astartes. Orcs are allowed to spread, their empires encouraged to grow, so long as they serve the purpose of eternal war. The galaxy becomes a crucible where human and Xenos blood flows freely, feeding the endless hunger of Khorne. The Necrons stir in their tombs, awakened by the shifting tides of the warp. Yet even their soulless legions cannot resist the storm unleashed by Horus's triumph. Their awakening is stunted, their dynasties fragmented. Warp rifts split the fabric of reality, engulfing their tomb worlds before they can fully rise.
Though their technology is formidable, they find themselves assailed not only by mortal armies, but by demons that claw through the veil of reality. Necron tombs, once silent and untouchable, are desecrated by entities they cannot comprehend, and their immortal lords are forced into desperate battles against beings that mock the laws of existence. The Tyrannids, far beyond the galactic rim, sense the banquet that humanity has become. The psychic beacon of the Astronomicon no longer guides humanity, but instead burns as a wound within the warp, a signal that draws the great devourer with irresistible urgency. Hive fleets descend upon the fringes of Horus's empire, consuming entire sectors before any meaningful defense can be mounted. Yet the galaxy they encounter is not the Imperium of old, disciplined and vast, but a fractured dominion where chaos feeds upon itself. The Tyrannids find rich feeding grounds, but their very presence sparks wars of apocalyptic scale as chaos legions clash with the swarms, demons rend carapaces, and the galaxy burns anew. The Tyrannids, far beyond the galactic rim, sense the banquet that humanity has become. The psychic beacon of the Astronomicon no longer guides humanity, but instead burns as a wound within the warp, a signal that draws the great devourer with irresistible urgency. Hive fleets descend upon the fringes of Horus's empire, consuming entire sectors before any meaningful defense can be mounted. Yet the galaxy they encounter is not the Imperium of old, disciplined and vast, but a fractured dominion where chaos feeds upon itself. The Tyrannids find rich feeding grounds, but their very presence sparks wars of apocalyptic scale, as chaos legions clash with the swarms, demons rend carapaces, and the galaxy burns anew.
For the common citizen of mankind, existence becomes a torment. To live under Horus's rule is to breathe corruption with every breath. Families are torn apart by cults that demand sacrifice. Children are dedicated to chaos the moment they are born, their bodies tattooed with the marks of gods they will never understand. Entire cities rise in frenzied worship, their populations whipped into madness during rituals that culminate in mass immolation, offerings to powers that care nothing for the lives extinguished. Technology stagnates, perverted by the whims of the Dark Mechanicum. Instead of innovation, machines are constructed to appease the warp. Titans stride across the battlefield not as weapons of order, but as walking altars to chaos, their guns roaring hymns of destruction, their machine spirits bound to demonic entities. Forge worlds collapse into factories of damnation, where humans are little more than cogs in a machine that produces endless war engines, each one a grotesque fusion of iron, flesh, and daemon. And through it all, Horus watches. The galaxy is his, and yet he is not content. Victory, though absolute, has left him with an emptiness that cannot be filled. He sees the treachery of his brothers, the schemes of the gods, the futility of mortal devotion. He has conquered all, but in conquering all, he has become a prisoner of the very powers that raised him. His soul, once radiant with ambition, is now a battlefield of pride and doubt. He knows he is both master and slave, emperor and pawn. Whispers grow among the population of worlds still loyal in secret to the Empire. Though he lies dead, his spirit is said to linger, flickering like a candle in the warp. Psychers dream of a golden figure, broken yet unyielding, who speaks of hope and resistance. These visions spread like wildfire, igniting sparks of rebellion, even in the heart of Horus's dominion. Horus's cells adopt the aquila as their symbol, daubing it on walls in the dead of night, carving it into the armor of fallen warriors. To Horus, it is a minor nuisance, easily crushed. But to the people, it is a reminder that the Emperor's dream has not fully perished. Horus's paranoia deepens. He lashes out at these cults with merciless efficiency, deploying entire legions to exterminate a single rumor, a single whisper. Cities are leveled, planets reduced to ash, all in the name of stamping out the embers of hope. Yet, the harder he tries to extinguish them, the more they spread. For in his fury, he proves the truth of their belief, that even in death, the Emperor defies him. The warp storms that engulf the galaxy worsen with every passing millennium. Demonic incursions are no longer rare, but constant, tearing into real space without warning. Worlds vanish overnight, consumed by rifts that open beneath their crusts. Fleets sail into the void, only to emerge centuries later, their crews twisted beyond recognition, their allegiance to Horus unshaken, but their humanity lost forever. The galaxy becomes a theater of nightmares, where time and reality themselves are no longer stable.
And still the wars rage. The Chaos Legions, though united under Horus, cannot suppress their own natures. Rivalries flare into open conflict. Perturbo wages bitter sieges against Angron's slaughtering hordes. Fulgrim and Mortarion clash over worlds to corrupt, their hatred festering even as they kneel to the same master. Magnus the Red, torn between his loyalty to Horus and the manipulations of Chinch, begins to plot in secret, his knowledge of the warp pushing him ever closer to open rebellion. Horus quells these conflicts with brutal efficiency, yet each one weakens his grasp, eroding the illusion of unity he has fought so hard to maintain. Thus, the galaxy is caught in an eternal cycle of conquest and collapse, destruction and rebirth. Humanity is no longer a species striving for enlightenment, but a broken thrall chained to the whims of gods and the ambitions of their mortal champion. The Emperor's dream of a united, rational Imperium has been reduced to ashes, and in its place stands an empire of madness, a throne carved from skulls, and a legacy written in blood. Horus won, but in his victory, the galaxy itself became the prize and the prison, a testament to the ruin that chaos brings, and the eternal night that follows when hope is extinguished.
Millennia pass, and still the shadow of Horus stretches across the stars. His dominion, though vast, is never stable, for chaos does not grant peace, only eternal strife. The War Master sits upon the throne of Terra, a twisted parody of the Emperor he slew, his body infused with warp-born vitality, his mind ever consumed by whispers from beyond. The palace is no longer a seat of order, but a cathedral of despair, its walls dripping with blood and etched with the symbols of the ruinous powers. Where once pilgrims came to worship the Emperor, now countless millions arrive in chains, sacrifices to feed the insatiable hunger of chaos. The Primarchs, once his brothers, now his lieutenants, fracture the galaxy with their own ambitions. Fulgrim withdraws into his hedonistic empire, transforming entire sectors into playgrounds of excess, where mortals live and die as instruments of his endless pursuit of sensation. Mortarion festers in his plague-ridden domains, spreading disease and rot across worlds until even stone itself crumbles into dust. Angron rampages unchecked, his legions spilling oceans of blood in Khorne's name, caring nothing for governance or stability. Perturbo, ever bitter, constructs fortresses and labyrinthine strongholds, carving empires of iron that defy even his allies. Magnus the Red cloisters himself upon the ruins of Prospero, weaving sorcery that threatens to unravel the veil of reality itself. Horus, though victorious, finds himself bound by the very chaos he unleashed.
He is the master of the galaxy, yet he rules a kingdom of ash, where every triumph births another rebellion. Every conquest sows the seeds of treachery. The Chaos Gods, who once exalted him as their chosen, now seek to pull him apart, each demanding his devotion above all others. They whisper conflicting commands, pit his brothers against him, and weave lies into his every thought. Though Horus resists, his will is tested beyond measure, for he must forever prove his worth, lest he be cast aside like so many champions before him. On Terra, the people are little more than cattle. Generations have lived and died, knowing only servitude to the War Master. Children are raised not in schools, but in shrines to chaos, their innocence stolen as they are taught to chant hymns to the dark gods before they can even speak their mother's tongue. To refuse is death. To comply is a fate worse than death. Gladiatorial arenas fill the skies, where mortals are forced to slaughter one another for the amusement of their masters. Blood runs so freely across Terra that rivers are stained crimson, feeding the ever-hungry altars of corn. Yet not all submit. In the depths of Terra's underhives, whispers persist of the Emperor's lingering spirit. Small cults of resistance grow, worshipping not the Chaos Pantheon, but the memory of their slain master. They believe he exists still within the warp, a golden light hidden beneath the storms of chaos, guiding them in dreams. These cells are hunted mercilessly, their members tortured and executed, their families burned alive as examples.
Still they endure, for hope, even faint, is a fire that cannot wholly extinguished. The galaxy beyond reflects the same decay. Warp storms engulf the void, cutting off entire sectors for centuries. Planets vanish into the Imperium, their populations twisted into demonic abominations. Civilizations that once flourished under the Imperium's rule collapse into ruin, their histories erased, their people enslaved. Some worlds become factories of endless war, producing weapons not for defense, but as offerings to chaos. Others degenerate into nightmarish realms where demonic entities walk openly among mortals, worshipped as gods. Xenos races fare no better. The Tau never rise, crushed before their empire can bloom. The Eldar dwindle into nothingness, their craft worlds shattered, their souls devoured. The Orcs spread unchecked, yet are drawn into the service of Horus's endless campaigns, their Wag redirected as a tool of eternal bloodshed. Even the Necrons, who might have restored their dynasties, are ensnared by the warp's chaos. Their once immortal legions lost in battles against entities beyond their comprehension. Still, Horus reigns. Centuries turn to millennia, and the galaxy remembers no other ruler. Yet cracks begin to show in his empire. His brothers, once content to serve, grow restless. Each claims dominion over their own territories, bending the knee to Horus in word, but not in deed. Wars erupt between them, wars that consume entire sectors and leave billions dead.
Horus must intervene time and again, leading campaigns against his own blood to reassert dominance. These conflicts bleed his empire, weakening his grasp on the galaxy, even as he insists upon his supremacy. The Chaos Gods, too, grow restless. They are never satisfied, for chaos is by nature fickle. They gave Horus the galaxy, but they hunger for more devotion, more slaughter, more excess, more rot. They press upon him their will, seeking to transform him fully into their champion, to erase what little remains of his humanity. Horus resists, but the strain wears upon him. At times he feels his soul stretch thin, pulled in 4 directions at once, each god demanding he give himself fully. He knows that to yield is to lose himself forever, yet to resist is to risk their wrath. Thus the War Master, the conqueror of the galaxy, lives in torment. He has everything, yet nothing. He has won the war, but lost the peace. He has fulfilled his destiny, but in so doing has damned not only himself, but all of humanity. His name is etched across the stars, not as a savior, but as a curse. Children fear it, mortals scream it, and demons whisper it with reverence. And yet, somewhere within the warp, beyond the storms and shadows, there is a golden light, weak, flickering, but real. It is the Emperor, not as he was, but as he endures. A spirit bound not to flesh, but to the collective will of his people. Every act of resistance, every whispered prayer, every secret rebellion feeds him, strengthens him. He is no longer a god of empire, but a god of defiance, a beacon against the eternal night. Though Horus does not yet see it, his victory was not absolute. For as long as one human resists, as long as one mortal remembers the dream of unity and hope, the Emperor's light survives. And the galaxy, though drowned in darkness, waits. For in the endless night, even the faintest light is enough to spark a fire that may one day burn the throne of Horus to ash. 10,000 years after Horus' triumph, the galaxy is a scarred wasteland. His empire spans the stars, but it is not an empire of unity or progress. It is a carcass animated by violence, greed, and the whispers of demons. Terra remains the black heart of this dominion, a world rebuilt not as the cradle of mankind, but as a shrine to the dark gods. The sky is never clear. It boils with storms of ash and fire. The seas are stagnant, filled with the bodies of sacrifices cast into them by the billions. The very soil groans under the weight of death, for every inch of ground is consecrated with blood. At the center of it all, in the throne room of the Imperial Palace, Horus sits. No longer merely a Primarch, no longer even fully mortal, he has become something more and something less. His body is a monument to chaos, swollen with dark power, his flesh scarred by countless wars and mutations. His eyes burn with the eternal glow of the warp, and his voice carries the weight of a god's decree. Yet, within that monstrous form, lingers a man tormented, for Horus remembers. He remembers the moment his father fell, remembers the look in the Emperor's eyes, a mixture of sorrow and defiance. That memory, though buried, festers like a wound that even chaos cannot heal. His empire is vast, but it is fractured. The Primarchs, once his brothers, have become little more than warlords. Fulgrim's decadent empire festers with excess. Entire planets turned into palaces of sin, where mortals are consumed in endless orgies of sensation. Mortorian's plague fleets spread misery, his world's nothing but rotting husks, where disease is worshipped as salvation. Angron's bloody conquests leave behind only silence, for no population survives his wrath. Magnus's sorceries tear reality itself, creating rifts in the galaxy where time and space collapse. Perturabo builds fortresses so vast and so cruel that they stand as eternal prisons, monuments to his bitterness. Horus must rule them all, but they are not his allies, they are rivals, each scheming, each hungering for more. Their loyalty is bought with fear and broken with pride. Wars between them flare endlessly, forcing Horus to choose which Primarch to support and which to punish. These civil wars drain his empire, leaving billions dead, not in battles against Xenos or rebellion, but in conflicts between brothers. Yet Horus cannot abandon them, for to lose even one would invite the wrath of the Chaos Gods, who delight in his torment. Humanity suffers beneath this eternal war. There is no progress, no hope, no science, no art, only survival.
Worlds are stripped bare of resources to fuel Horus's endless campaigns. Entire generations live only to die in the arenas, the sacrificial pits, or on battlefields where they are little more than fodder for their masters. Religion has become nothing but the worship of chaos forced upon every soul. Statues of Horus dominate every city, not as a father of mankind, but as its tyrant, its executioner. And yet, in the cracks of this nightmare, resistance endures. Across the galaxy, tiny pockets of rebellion persist. They are not armies, not in the sense of old, but scattered cells of mortals who refuse to bow. They whisper prayers not to Horus, nor to the dark gods, but to the Emperor who was slain. They tell stories of a man who united humanity, who sought to banish superstition, who fought not for himself, but for the survival of his people. To the masses, they are heretics, hunted and destroyed. But their belief has power. For belief in the Warhammer universe is never powerless. Within the warp, the Emperor's presence stirs. It is faint, a golden ember buried beneath oceans of corruption, but it grows with each act of defiance, each whispered prayer, each soul that dies with his name upon their lips. Unlike Horus, who is bound to chaos, the Emperor's essence is bound to the will of humanity itself. He becomes not a god of empire, but a god of rebellion, a god of hope against impossible odds. His strength does not rise quickly, but slowly, over millennia, carried by the sacrifices of the forgotten and the desperate. Unlike Horus, who is bound to chaos, the Emperor's essence is bound to the will of humanity itself. He becomes not a god of empire, but a god of rebellion, a god of hope against impossible odds. His strength does not rise quickly, but slowly, over millennia, carried by the sacrifices of the forgotten and the desperate.
Horus, for all his power, begins to sense it. At first, it is a shadow in his dreams, a whisper in the endless noise of chaos. He dismisses it as a trick of the gods, another torment meant to break him. But it returns, again and again, a voice, calm, unwavering, not of the warp, but of something deeper. It does not beg, nor curse, nor rage. It simply exists, reminding Horus of what he destroyed, of what he has become. and though he tries to banish it, he cannot. The Chaos Gods notice too. They grow restless, for the ember of the Emperor's spirit is a threat to their dominion. They press harder upon Horus, demanding greater sacrifices, greater cruelty, greater devotion. They whisper promises of ascension, of eternal godhood, if only he will give himself fully to them. Horus resists, but the strain is immense. His body grows ever more twisted, his soul stretched thin between his own will and the demands of powers greater than himself. Thus the galaxy stands upon a precipice. Horus, the War Master, master of mankind, has ruled for 10,000 years, yet his throne is not secure. His brothers hunger for his crown. His empire bleeds from endless war. His people whisper of rebellion. And within the warp, the Emperor's light endures, faint but growing, waiting for the moment when resistance becomes revolution. This is not a future of peace. It is not a future of hope. It is a future of eternal darkness, eternal war, eternal suffering. But even in the darkest night, a single spark can ignite a fire. And Horus, though he knows it not, may yet be undone, not by gods, nor armies, nor Primarchs, but by the stubborn will of humanity itself, the very people he sought to dominate.
As centuries bleed into further millennia, Horus's dominion grows increasingly unstable. What was once a single empire, held together by his iron will, has become a patchwork of feudal war zones, each ruled by a Primarch who serves chaos as much as Horus himself. The galaxy is a mosaic of nightmares, where entire sectors exist only to sate the whims of a single god. Horus, though still feared, begins to sense the weight of inevitability pressing upon him. For though he has conquered the stars, he cannot conquer chaos. The warp bleeds ever more into reality. The barriers between dimensions are thin, torn apart by the actions of Magnus and the rituals of Fulgrim. Demonic incursions are no longer rare, but constant. On many worlds, demons walk openly among mortals, worshipped as saints and kings. The line between flesh and spirit blurs until there is no line at all. Mortals are reshaped daily by the whims of the warp, their bodies twisted into forms both glorious and grotesque. The galaxy itself is being remade, no longer a material realm, but a hellscape in the image of chaos. Horus, however, is no fool. He sees the danger in this transformation. He understands, perhaps better than any of his brothers, that chaos does not grant victory, it devours it. He watches as his legions, once disciplined warriors, become mindless zealots, their oaths sworn not to him, but to their gods. The sons of Horus themselves fracture, splintering into warbands that fight as much for their patron deities as for their war master.
To maintain authority, Horus must wage war against his own sons, purging them when their loyalty strays too far. Every victory against rebellion costs him more than it gains, leaving his forces weaker, thinner, less united. The Primarchs grow ever more dangerous. Fulgrim, lost entirely to excess, no longer even pretends loyalty, his devotion to Slaanesh overriding any bond to Horus. Angron knows only slaughter, his red butchers rampaging across the galaxy without heed to strategy or command. Mortarion spreads his plagues into Horus's own domains, corrupting entire systems not as a rebellion, but as an inevitability. Perturbo's fortresses grow so vast and impenetrable that not even Horus himself could breach them without losing millions of lives. Magnus, perhaps the most dangerous, begins to ascend to a level of sorcery that even the Chaos gods fear, his mind touching realities beyond their own. These are no longer allies, they are rivals. Brothers no more, but wolves circling, each waiting for the moment the War Master stumbles. And stumble he will, for time itself is his enemy. Though chaos sustains his body, his mind carries the scars of millennia of war, betrayal, and torment. He remembers the Emperor's face more vividly now than ever. It is not a memory of rage, but of sorrow, sorrow that burrows into his soul like a dagger. For in slaying his father, he has become everything the Emperor once warned him against. This realization festers, though he never admits it, not to his brothers.
Not to his legions, not even to himself. Yet it gnaws at him, and the Chaos gods know it. They pour their voices into his mind, drowning him in their demands, twisting his doubt into agony. They remind him that his throne exists only because they allow it. They show him visions of what could have been, the Imperium united, humanity strong, the galaxy free of chaos touch. And they laugh, because it was he, Horus, who cast it all into ruin. Meanwhile, the ember of the Emperor's spirit grows brighter within the warp. It does not shine like the Astronomicon once did. It is subtle, hidden, easily overlooked amidst the storms. But it is there, and it calls to humanity. Rebellions spread, not vast armies, but sparks, isolated uprisings, desperate acts of defiance. Whole worlds rise in his name, even if they are crushed swiftly. Each act fuels the light further, strengthening the Emperor's presence. He is no longer bound to a throne of gold or a failing body. He is bound to belief, to the hope that will not die. In the warp, the Emperor's essence becomes something new. Not the secular ruler who sought to deny gods, nor the distant tyrant of the old Imperium, but a god of resistance. Where chaos represents domination, excess, hatred, and decay, the Emperor now represents the opposite: endurance, unity, and the will to defy. He is not strong, not yet, but he grows, and the Chaos gods begin to fear him. For they know what mortals do not, that belief shapes reality. And if belief in Horus wanes, while belief in the Emperor grows, the balance may shift once more. Horus begins to sense this too. He feels the Emperor's presence in his dreams, clearer now, less a whisper and more a voice. It does not condemn him, nor rage against him. Instead, it mourns him. It mourns what he has become, what he has lost, what he has destroyed. This unnerves the War Master more than any curse could, for he cannot banish sorrow as he can banish hatred. He begins to doubt his gods, doubt his brothers, doubt himself. And doubt, in the heart of a conqueror, is poison. The galaxy trembles. Horus's empire rots from within. His Primarchs plot against him. His legions fracture further. His people whisper rebellion. And the Emperor's light, though faint, begins to pierce the shroud of eternal night. 10,000 years of dominion have hollowed Horus from within.
He still sits the throne of Terra, the War Master, the conqueror of mankind, the slayer of the Emperor. His body is swollen with gifts of the warp, his armor fused with flesh, his eyes burning with eternal fire. To mortals, he is indistinguishable from a god. Yet beneath the monstrous visage lies a soul increasingly fractured, torn between the will of chaos and the fading remnants of who he once was. The chaos gods never cease their torment. To them, Horus is not a king, but a tool, the greatest champion they ever forged, but still only a pawn in their eternal game. They whisper into his mind, demanding blood, demanding sacrifice, demanding greater wars to keep the galaxy forever aflame. But Horus is weary.
Not with the exhaustion of the body, for chaos sustains that, but with the exhaustion of the spirit. He has waged war for 10,000 years without pause. His empire locked in endless conflict, not only with rebels and Xenos, but with itself. There is no peace, only slaughter. And Horus, though he would never speak it aloud, begins to wonder what it was all for. His Primarch brothers sense this weakness. Fulgrim cares nothing for Horus's throne. His empire of debauchery is self-contained, feeding endlessly upon itself. Angron's madness leaves him incapable of plotting, though his mindless crusades leave ruin in their wake. Mortarion and Perturbaro, however, are less complacent. Both have carved out empires of their own, and both resent Horus's supremacy. Perturbaro especially believes he could rule better, his iron logic and cruel efficiency promising an empire not of Chaos's whim, but of his own design. Magnus, too, grows ever more distant, his mastery of the warp rivaling the gods themselves. He is less a brother now than a rival deity in his own right. Civil war simmers just beneath the surface of Horus's dominion. Skirmishes between their forces erupt constantly, sometimes hidden as misunderstandings, sometimes blatant acts of defiance. Horus stamps them out with fury, but every victory costs him. He cannot kill his brothers. Chaos forbids it, for the Primarchs are its greatest treasures. But neither can he trust them, nor truly command them. His empire is his in name, but in truth it belongs to the warp.
The mortal population fares worse than ever. On Terra, billions are sacrificed in endless rituals to sustain Horus' reign. The planet is no longer a cradle of humanity, but a living wound. Cities are built from bone, rivers run with blood, and the skies are torn by constant storms of warp lightning. Entire generations are born only to die in service to the dark gods. Across the galaxy, humanity lives as slaves, fodder for wars they do not understand, their cultures erased and replaced with the worship of chaos. Hope is a forgotten word, and yet, in forgotten corners, it lingers. Whispers of the Emperor spread. In secret, mortals gather to speak his name, passing down stories of a man who defied gods and sought to unite humanity without superstition. These are not vast armies, but scattered embers, tiny rebellions that rise and fall with little impact. And yet, each one strengthens something within the warp. The Emperor's essence, bound not to a corpse on a throne, but to the belief of his people, grows. Slowly, quietly, but inevitably. The Chaos Gods recognize the danger before Horus does. They howl in rage, pouring more power into their champion, urging him to greater atrocities.
They demand entire sectors be purged in blood, that worlds be burned to ash to stamp out even the faintest whisper of rebellion. Horus obeys at first, but the voice in his dreams remains. The Emperor speaks to him not as a tyrant, not as a foe, but as a father. The voice does not rage nor curse, but mourns.
And this, more than any blade or spell, weakens Horus, for it reminds him of what he once was and what he lost. The War Master begins to falter. His commands grow erratic, his wrath more violent, his judgment clouded. He lashes out at his brothers, accusing them of betrayal, even when none has yet occurred. His paranoia grows, and with it the fractures in his empire widen. Perturabo sharpens his blades, waiting for the chance to strike. Mortarion whispers with Nurgle of a dominion free of Horus's oversight. Magnus, from his crimson towers, watches and waits, playing his own long game, perhaps even seeing the return of the Emperor's light. The galaxy quakes as Horus's dominion begins to unravel. He is still powerful, still feared, but doubt has taken root. And in the Warhammer universe, doubt is death. For doubt weakens faith, and faith shapes reality. Already, the Emperor's spark grows brighter in the warp. Already, mortals die in his name with prayers on their lips. Already, Horus's throne trembles. The great irony is that Horus won the war 10,000 years ago, but in winning, he sowed the seeds of his own undoing. For where chaos thrives in ruin, humanity endures in defiance. And though the galaxy drowns in darkness, the ember of rebellion flickers, stubborn and eternal.
The cracks in Horus's empire widen into canyons. What was once an unstoppable reign, a single iron fist choking the galaxy, is now a fractured dominion of feuding warlords bound only by fear of the War Master's wrath. But fear, like all things, erodes with time. Even gods tire of their chosen champion. On Terra, Horus's throne is no longer a symbol of absolute power, but a cage. He rarely leaves it now, his body swollen with so many blessings and mutations that even walking requires effort. His skin is a shifting tapestry of scars and sigils, his face a grotesque mask of bone and steel. Where once he had been the most beloved of the Emperor's sons, radiant and noble, he is now a mockery of what humanity might aspire to. His legions still kneel, but they kneel out of obligation, not devotion. Many wonder if he is still Horus at all, or merely a puppet stuffed with the voices of gods. It is in this climate that betrayal festers. Perturbaro, the master of iron and siege, has long grown weary of Horus's rule. His empire of fortress worlds is self-sufficient. His armies of daemon engines and enslaved mortals vast enough to rival even the sons of Horus. He has watched the War Master stumble, seen his paranoia deepen, and heard the whispers of rebellion from other brothers. In his cold, logical heart, Perturbaro calculates the outcome. Horus is failing. And when the War Master falls, the galaxy must have a new master. But Perturbaro is not the first to move.
Magnus, ever watchful, ever ambitious, makes his own play. The Crimson King no longer pretends to be bound to Horus's will. His psychic mastery has grown to the point where entire sectors bow to him, not through armies, but through sorcery. He remakes worlds into monuments of his own genius, reshaping matter with thought, binding mortals to him with chains of flame and knowledge. His empire is less of flesh and steel, and more of mind and spirit. Some even whisper he is ascending, not merely a daemon prince, but something far greater, perhaps like the gods themselves. Horus knows this. He sees his brothers' ambitions rising, their loyalty dwindling. He roars his defiance, unleashing wars upon them, sending his fleets to remind them of his power. But each war weakens him further. His sons bleed, his armies fracture, and the Chaos Gods laugh, for this is their design. For all their chosen champions, the fate is always the same: to rise, to burn, to fall, and to be replaced. But Horus will not be replaced, not willingly. His pride burns hotter than any star. He is the one who slew the Emperor. He is the one who conquered Terra. He is the one who won the war. He will not bow to his brothers, nor to the gods themselves. And yet, the dreams continue. The voice continues. The Emperor whispers to him still, not as an enemy, but as a father. Not condemning, not cursing, but mourning. Horus cannot banish it. In the still moments, when the wars are distant and the throne room is quiet, he almost answers. He almost speaks back. He almost admits what he will not say aloud, that in victory he has lost everything. And this hesitation, this fracture of spirit, is what gives strength to the ember of resistance. Across the galaxy, more rebellions flare. On Cadia, on Armageddon, on countless nameless worlds, mortals defy their masters, whispering the Emperor's name before they die. Some are crushed within hours. Some last for decades. All burn brightly, feeding the Emperor's growing presence within the warp. He is not yet a god, as chaos is a god, but he is becoming something close, something born of defiance, not domination. The Chaos Gods rage. They demand Horus end these rebellions with finality, but Horus hesitates. Not from mercy, no, the War Master knows only war. But in the hearts of these rebels, he sees something he cannot understand, something he envies. They die with hope. They die with faith. They die for something greater than themselves. He has not felt that since he raised his blade against the Emperor on the bridge of the vengeful spirit, and it haunts him. The first true betrayal comes from within. Perturbo, seeing Horus's hesitation as weakness, strikes. His iron warriors launch a campaign not against mortals, not against rebels, but against Horus's own holdings. Entire sectors burn as brother turns on brother. The sons of Horus rally, but they are spread thin, and Perturbo's fortresses are impenetrable. The war grinds into a stalemate of attrition, and though Horus rages with the fury of a god, he cannot end it. The first true betrayal comes from within. Perturbo, seeing Horus's hesitation as weakness, strikes. His iron warriors launch a campaign not against mortals, not against rebels, but against Horus's own holdings. Entire sectors burn as brother turns on brother. The sons of Horus rally, but they are spread thin, and Perturbo's fortresses are impenetrable. The war grinds into a stalemate of attrition, and though Horus rages with the fury of a god, he cannot end it.
The galaxy bleeds. Chaos's grand victory is crumbling from within. And all the while, the Emperor's light grows brighter. The first visions begin. Across the warp, psychers dream of a golden figure walking among the stars. They hear his voice in their minds, not commanding, but comforting. They see him not as a distant tyrant, but as a savior. These visions spread, uniting disparate rebels who had never before known of one another. For the first time in 10,000 years, the whispers of hope are louder than the screams of despair. And Horus, in the dark of his throne room, hears the voice most of all. The Emperor is no longer a faint murmur. He is clear, calm, unyielding. Horus covers his ears, he howls, he slaughters slaves and sacrifices worlds to silence it. But it remains. And worse, a part of him does not want it silenced. For the War Master of Chaos, the conqueror of Terra, the slayer of the Emperor, is afraid. The galaxy groans under the weight of chaos, but for the first time in millennia there is a shift. Something moves in the warp that is not of the four. Something golden, something that does not scream, but burns with silence. It spreads like a current beneath the surface of an ocean, subtle at first, but undeniable. The Emperor's essence has grown beyond whispers. Where once he was only a faint voice in Horus's dreams and the fragile faith of scattered rebels, now he manifests. Psychers across the galaxy collapse into seizures, their eyes bleeding light as they behold a figure clad in radiance.
Some call it hallucination. Others call it prophecy. But all who witness it feel the same thing: hope. This is not the Emperor of the Great Crusade, not the Lord of armies and empire, but something purer, stripped of flesh and ambition. He is faith crystallized into will, defiance given form. His power rises not because he claims it, but because mortals give it freely, their belief a sacrifice no warp god can ever force. For the first time, chaos trembles, and Horus feels it most of all. The voice in his dreams has become a presence. The throne room of Terra, once filled with screams and chants to the dark gods, is now haunted by silence between the echoes. He sees his father's face in the shadows, not as an accusing god, but as the man who once called him son. The memories Horus buried, the pride in the Emperor's eyes, the brotherhood of the Primarchs before they turned, return unbidden. He tries to banish them with slaughter, with war, with sacrifice, yet they remain. His sons notice. The sons of Horus, once the fiercest of all traitors, whisper in doubt. Their gene-sire grows erratic, sometimes roaring in fury, sometimes brooding in silence. He rants about voices none can hear, about golden light in the corners of the eye. Many begin to question if their father is slipping into madness, or if he is already lost. The other Primarchs circle like predators scenting weakness. Perturbaro presses his war with renewed fury, determined to shatter Horus's hold once and for all. Mortarion withdraws his forces, retreating into his diseased dominions, where Nurgle's rot festers unchecked. The other Primarchs circle like predators scenting weakness. Perturbaro presses his war with renewed fury, determined to shatter Horus's hold once and for all. Mortarion withdraws his forces, retreating into his diseased dominions, where Nurgle's rot festers unchecked. Angron, unleashed and uncontrollable, burns worlds in blind rage, caring nothing for politics. Fulgrim whispers venom, mocking Horus's weakness, even as his own empire sinks deeper into decadent collapse. And Magnus watches, always watching, his empire of sorcery swelling, his ambitions rivaling godhood itself. He sees Horus faltering, and he smiles, for perhaps this was the future he foresaw, not Horus eternal, but Horus undone. The Chaos gods themselves are displeased. Their champion, their greatest pawn, hesitates. They flood him with visions of glory, of burning worlds, of eternal dominion. They promise him more gifts, more power, more legions of daemons to crush his foes. But Horus does not answer as he once did. He roars and rages, yes, but deep within there is hesitation. Because the Emperor's voice does not offer power, it offers forgiveness. And forgiveness is something Horus cannot understand, but desperately craves. The rebellions multiply. Cadia rises again, its people fighting not for survival, but for belief. Armageddon bleeds as mortals carve the Emperor's sigil into their flesh, choosing death over slavery. Even in the depths of Terra itself, cults of resistance whisper prayers in the catacombs beneath the blood-soaked surface. They are crushed each time, slaughtered without mercy, but more always appear. The more they die, the stronger their faith becomes, and the warp responds. The Emperor's presence begins to shape reality. Where his name is spoken, daemons falter.
Where prayers are whispered, chaos sorcery fails. Small at first, a blade that does not break, a man who does not scream when sacrificed, but enough to spread rumors. And rumors are more dangerous than armies. For chaos rules by fear, and fear is powerless against hope. Horus cannot ignore it. He begins to see the Emperor not only in dreams, but in waking visions. In the reflection of his armor, he sees not a monster, but the son who once swore loyalty. In the faces of rebels, he sees not defiance, but belief. And in his own heart, he feels something he thought long dead: doubt. The throne of Terra is no longer stable. His legions mutter, his brothers scheme, the gods rage. And in the warp, a rival power grows. Not a fifth god of chaos, but something entirely different. Something outside their eternal cycle of hunger and decay. Something the chaos gods cannot control. For 10,000 years, Horus believed he had won. But now he begins to realize the truth. The war never ended. The Emperor is not gone. He has only changed. And every prayer, every act of defiance brings him closer to returning. The War Master of Chaos, the Conqueror of Terra, the Slayer of the Emperor, feels fear. Not of his brothers, not of rebels, not even of the gods he serves, but of the voice that will not leave him. The voice that whispers not of ruin, but of redemption. The voice that promises that even now, even after all he has done, he could still choose. And that, for Horus, is the most terrifying choice of all.
The galaxy trembles as the final millennia of Horus's reign unfold. The War Master's empire, once a monolithic nightmare of war and corruption, is now fracturing under its own weight. His brothers, his sons, his legions, all are restless, emboldened by the faint but growing presence of the Empire within the warp. Rebellion is no longer isolated. It is a tide, swelling across worlds, infecting mortals and psykers alike with courage they thought impossible. Horus senses it everywhere. He feels the whispers in the warp grow stronger, the rebellions more frequent, the actions of mortals daring, almost defiant. The Chaos Gods roar at him, urging him to crush these sparks of defiance, to smite entire sectors in rivers of blood. Yet he hesitates. A shadow flickers in his mind, the memory of his father, the echo of loyalty and love long buried beneath ambition and rage. He does not fully understand it, and that is what terrifies him most. Perturbabo strikes decisively. The Iron Warriors launch a campaign against Horus's heartlands, seizing key systems, destroying loyalist fleets, and turning demonic constructs against their former master. Mortarion, Magnus, and Fulgrim each make moves of their own, seeking to carve their own empires from the chaos of Horus's weakening dominion. Even Angron, mindless in his rage, tears through territories in ways that disrupt Horus's logistical control. Horus commands, he battles, he kills, but every action fractures his rule further.
His empire is a sinking ship, and he knows it. And then the Emperor manifests fully, not as he once was, not in flesh, but as a force within the warp, crystallized by belief and defiance. Worlds light with golden fire, psyches collapse with visions of him, and mortals rise with his name on their lips. He is no longer hidden. He is a god of rebellion, a beacon of hope, and a rival to chaos itself. Where he manifests, demons falter, chaos sorcery fails, and mortals feel strength beyond flesh. The galaxy has never seen anything like it. Horus is shaken to his core. He is not merely challenged by mortals, or even by his brothers. He is confronted by the essence of the one he killed, the father he betrayed, the emperor he sought to extinguish. And yet, this is not a rage-filled confrontation. The emperor does not strike Horus. He offers a choice, silent but powerful. Continue the path of destruction and fall into oblivion, or turn from the darkness and allow what little redemption remains. The War Master, the slayer of the Emperor, the conqueror of Terra, hesitates. For the first time in 10,000 years, he sees not only his own empire crumbling, but the possibility of a different future. One where the galaxy is not only chaos and blood, but choice is alien to him now. Chaos has shaped him, the gods have warped him, and millennia of war have left his mind a battlefield of doubt and fury. The Primarchs, sensing the shift, turn decisively. Perturabo challenges Horus openly. Mortarion retreats to strengthen his plague holdings. Magnus ascends further in the warp. Fulgrim indulges in excess and decadence. Angron continues his mindless slaughter. Horus fights them all, not as a war master commanding loyalty, but as a man clinging to the memory of victory, desperate to maintain control. The galaxy itself rebels. Civilizations rise, armies form, fleets strike with the fervor of desperation. Chaos spreads, yes, but it spreads against opposition now. Horus's dominion is a battlefield from end to end, his rule contested not just by mortals, but by the very forces he once commanded. And in the warp, the Emperor grows stronger. Every act of defiance, every whispered prayer, every death in his name fuels him. He does not strike with vengeance, but with inevitability. For hope, once ignited, is unstoppable. Demons flee, systems stabilize, and the faithful rise.
Horus senses it, the tide turning, the inevitability that he cannot crush. Belief itself. The final confrontation is not one of armies alone, but of wills. Horus, once the master of the galaxy, now faces the very embodiment of defiance. The Chaos Gods rage, their champion faltering, their empire unraveling, their influence threatened. Horus strikes with all the fury of 10,000 years, yet every blow is met with resistance, every victory hollow. He cannot destroy what is sustained by faith, and the galaxy, for all its darkness, begins to shine with flickers of hope.
The conclusion is not neat, nor final, nor comforting. Horus does not die. He is not redeemed. He remains a god of chaos, a monster, a tyrant whose name is feared across the stars. But his victory is incomplete. The Emperor endures, a force growing in power and influence, a rival that even the ruinous powers cannot fully suppress. The galaxy is now divided not merely by mortal factions, but by a cosmic struggle between ultimate domination and ultimate defiance. For 10,000 years, Horus ruled. For 10,000 more, he will be challenged. And somewhere, deep within the warp, the Emperor waits. Not as a corpse, not as a relic, but as a living spark of hope. A promise that even the darkest victory can never be absolute. The galaxy, forever at war, burns. Chaos has conquered, yes. Horus reigns supreme, yes. But the ember of defiance, fragile, golden, eternal, has survived. And that is the truth the War Master cannot escape. Even when he wins, the war is never over.